What is good, what is good, what is good, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages? You may be sitting here wondering what the hell did just started to premiere on this Sinful Black channel today. Well, I've been talking about doing like fanfic over gameplays, and the Paw Patrol gameplay I had come up early this morning. I started doing it, and the audio was all screwed up, and so was the video quality. But I was like really into the story that I was reading, and it's from an author named The Perfect Organism. It's called Paw Patrol Biofreeze. I'm going to read this entire 5-chapter, 59-page story right here in this video right now. If you want to read it for yourself, I'll leave the link to the story in the description below. But yeah, I was like really into this as I was reading it. And when I went back to check the recording, my computer was like, nah, go fuck yourself. I'm not going to allow you to do this. So, the presence of the story, it says, a blizzard has hit Everest's mountain, bathing the ski lounge in snow. While the husky prepares to remain indoors, strange noises surround the mountain, and Everest soon realizes that not everything is what it seems. When a threat emerges from the snowstorm, Everest must put forward everything she has to keep herself from being dragged to an icy fate. This story is listed as Paw Patrol, Everest Chase Jake Gasket, fanfic horror thriller Paw Patrol creepypasta blood gore dark winter Everest furry pain military. So I will try to keep a decent pace of reading this. Sometimes my list will misinterpret words. Sometimes just the straight up. Sometimes the words are not spelled right in the story, so I will read them as they are. So please sit back, relax, and join me as we read Paw Patrol Biofreeze. Chapter 1, Cabin Fever. Being a husky, Everest is one of the few dog breeds in the entire world who actively enjoyed being out in the dead of winter. Her oversized coat was perfect to block out the freezing wind and swirling clouds of snow, allowing her to peacefully walk outside on days most would be sitting inside by fires. Living in Jake's ski resort was seemingly the calling of her dream. Endless snowboarding, endless snow, and a loving owner to carry her through it all. Every day she would wake up in her dog bed, jump up happily, wolf down breakfast, and spring outside with her snowboard. Unfortunately, today was met with a grinding halt. The bad news was shared over breakfast in the ski lounge, where her owner had to stop at her nick of time. She charged for the front doors. Hey, wait! Jake held out his hand to the speeding dog, nearly knocking over his cup of coffee. Everest skidded to a grinding stop on the old hardwood floor, her snowboard still in her teeth as she looked over at Jake with a confused expression. With an exasperated sigh, her owner leaned back in his chair and with his drink, "No skiing today, pup," he said, morning exhaustion still dragging his words. "The resort is closed for the time being." Closed, Everest spat out a board, letting it drop to the floor with a loud clang. Why? You can't close the resort. I want to break my record. I just did. Jake, that's not fair. The husky stomped her paw, turning to him. You can't just shut everything down. What about all the people that want to ski? They can't. Jake was getting visibly agitated over her persistence. There's a snowstorm coming in. Weather report says we're going to get hit pretty hard, he said. Pretty hard, he said, sitting with his coffee with a spoon. It's too dangerous to be out there. I don't want to risk anyone getting hurt. With a sharp huff, the winter dog harshly sat in a pout. Her mother grumbled for a few seconds, likely trying to manufacture some argument. But the owner's word was law. Why don't we just enjoy being inside for once? Jake stood up, brushing off his bathrobe. We could binge a few movies. What do you say? He turned to walk into the kitchen, and soon the sound of rustling dishes could be heard. Tapping her paw for a moment, Everest sighed in defeat, but perked up optimistically. All right, that works. Her tail wagged as she nonchalantly kicked the snowboard away. I guess I could always ski another day. The smell of freshly brewed coffee filled the air, an aroma that made the dog's face twist. She had never understood for her life how humans could drink that vile stuff and not retch instantaneously. But Jake continued, emerging from the kitchen with a new mug of coffee. We may still go outside a few times. The blizzard will mean trouble for the signal towers. I have to suit up and inspect them every couple hours, he explained with a grim expression, fearing the terrifying ordeal ahead of him. Everest hopped up on the dining table, inspecting Jake's empty plate where bacon and eggs once existed. I still think we wouldn't have these problems if we, she held her last word, easing into her sentence, didn't have the towers to begin with. Hey, people pay good money to build their communication sites up here. Jake pointed his finger quickly, shutting down her argument. And the bigger the tower, the more they pay us. Money isn't really important to me. I'm a dog, after all, Everest countered, pointing right back. Well, it does to me. Jake hit her with a side eye, taking a sharp chug of his drink. Organizations from all over the world came up here to build their satellites. I think the last one we had was military. Lowering her head, Everest pawed at the empty plate, searching for any remains of bacon. I just get worried with how much stuff we do. You barely snowboard anymore, she said with a crestfallen tone. It's all just work, maintenance and all that. Stopping in place, guilt flashed over Jake's face as he began stuttering with a response. With nothing but garbled mess out of his mouth, he sighed and turned back to his pet with a frown. I know, and I'm sorry. This is just how I make money now. It is what it is. The husky turned her head away, lowering her gaze at the table. It's okay, I guess. I just get lonely sometimes. Why don't we invite the Paw Patrol up here once the storm is over? Jake offered, trying to lift the mood. I'll have to inspect the towers as usual, but you will have them to sled with. I'm not actually sure any of them like sledding. They probably just do it because they want to be nice to me. Everest, I'm positive they don't think that. What makes you think so? Because, Jake stammered, because why would they even do that? They're honest dogs. If they didn't like sledding, they'd probably tell you. I guess. Can you make me some toast, please? Everest sat politely, curling her tail around the paws. What? Toast? Seriously? I'm hungry. You already finished your bowl, Jake protested, pointing at the completely cleaned-out fossil that was her food dish. Well, maybe I'm still hungry. She fluffed out her coat, sass bleeding from her voice, and those food pellets taste like dirt. I want toast. I'm not making you toast. Jake swiftly turned away, heading for the stairs. The husky jumped up, sharpening her ears. I'm your pet. You're supposed to feed me. I am not making you toast. Then I'll make it myself. She suddenly jumped off the table, sprinting for the kitchen. Now Jake was on full alarm as he stopped at the track, spun around with the expression red. What? You don't know how? He was already speeding back over to contain the animal. Then I'll learn. Everest could be heard jumping onto the kitchen counter, knocking over silverware to crash through the floor. If I burn this place down, so be it. Oh, for God's sake. Two arms suddenly grabbed Everest's waist, lifting the defiant puppy away from the counter. Just go sit in your bed. I'll make you the damn toast, Jake said, giving in to her persistence and tossing her off the kitchen like a stuffed animal. The husky flopped to the ground, landing with a squeak. Yay! She wagged her tail happily. With cheese! She made sure to add, running off back to her bed and leaving Jake to silently curse to himself. Only his annoyed expression suddenly turned to a smile when he quickly an endearing chuckle left him. As much as Everest got in his nerves sometimes, he wouldn't trade her for anything in the world. Quickly downed the rest of his coffee. And putting up the mug, he turned back to the kitchen to make the dog a meal. All right, so I know I said I was going to read it all in one video. I'm not going to. We're going to do it by chapters because they seem to be pretty long. And we're going to see how you guys like these things. So we're going to continue this chapter right now. Much to Everest's disappointment, Jake had been right from the beginning. Merely an hour after noon, the sky around the mountain turned pale as freezing winds took the lounge by storm. Alongside it came a hail of snow that painted the windows in frost. No matter how much Everest squinted, she couldn't see 3 feet outside without the wiping of the front window. Jake made haste to shut off all the taps and the water lines in the building, taking care to prevent future ruptured pipes while he worked. Everest got comfortable before the fireplace with a blanket and a cup of hot vanilla. Sitting in the fire's warmth became boring fast. The husky looked around for nothing she could do. Elation spread across her face as she spotted the pup pad sitting on the far shelf. No doubt it was Jake's, but after the puppy discovered how many games she could download on it, she spent more time using it than the actual owner. She knew Jake was outside in the blizzard, likely tending to the several communication towers they were paid to host, and the image of him shuffling around the snowstorm sent a whine up her throat. He'll be fine. He always has been, she told herself. She pushed away her worries and walked over to retrieve the device. Within a minute, she had gotten lost in one of her favorite games. A world where you could play singing animals and create weirdly incredible songs. An hour had passed before she knew it, until something snapped her out of her hypnotic gaming. What sounded like a massive crack of thunder echoed from afar, making her jump out of her blanket. A squeal of surprise emitted from the puppy. Her fur standing straight up as the blanket shot off her, a sharp wave of vibration shot through the ski lounge, causing wall-mounted pictures and other objects to sway on their surfaces. These windows shook the fraction of a second before falling quiet. And Everest was left in a bewildered expression. She landed on all fours and looked around with a startled expression, her heartbeat surging within her, breathing quickly as she tried to calm herself. She brought her paw to a dog tag and activated its radio. Jake, did you... She struggled to calm her heart rate, still too startled to lie down again. Did you hear that? In the moment before owner's voice came through on the radio, when it did, the static sound of the raising blizzard accompanied him. I did, he said, sounding a little startled himself. Don't come outside. Was that thunder? Blizzards don't come with thunder, Everest, Jake explained, audibly breathing heavily. That sounded more like an explosion. Did a tower blow? The puppy asked wearily. Or a transformer? Grunting through the radio, her owner's voice was strained. I don't know. Maybe I'll double-check the radio towers, but it sounded much further away. Are you going to be okay out there? I'll be fine, Everest, Jake let a chuckle sigh through. Remember who it is you're talking to. Snowstorms are nothing to me. Now get some sleep, okay? I'll come back inside in about an hour. Everest still wasn't convinced, walking up to the glistening window, trying to peer outside. What about that explosion? What if there's a fire somewhere? Then I'll walk around the perimeter. I won't go further than the property line. Now please, get some sleep. I may need you in the morning to dig out any equipment buried in the snow. All right then, the husky deflated, but still tried to keep her hopes up. Be careful out there. Good night, Jake. She sighed and tapped the radio off. Mind still churning with the storm on its own. Unease burned within her, the sound of explosion still ringing in her ears. Even then, she knew there was nothing she could do about it, especially after Jake's orders to stay inside. The atmosphere of the ski lounge had shifted. The gentle crackle of the fire was the only thing to break the now deafening silence that was once warming a glow ease of freezing temperature had become the only source of light defending Everest from the surrounding darkness. Anxiety followed her gaze as she glanced in at every dark corner of the room, like something could be hiding in it. Her ears lowered as she closed herself further into the security blanket. She knew it would be impossible to get to sleep tonight. A sharp ringing sound shot into her ears, jump-starting the husky from her sleep. Ah! She sprang up in surprise, the blanket being shot off her for a second time. Briefly paralyzed, she landed on her back. Her mind struggled to pull itself together as she was forced out of slumber. Once her perception focused, she realized the ringing sound wasn't stopping. What? Who? She stammered, blinking the deliriousness from her eyes as she looked around frantically. The fireplace had died down, reduced to mere embers as the logs had been consumed by the flames. She had no idea what time it was, but still the lounge was bathed in the darkness of the night. Where? What? Everest shook her head of the nerves, thinking of the moment ringing sound was coming from her brain. Once she had fully awoken, she looked to the floor and saw a pup pad. Someone was calling her, making the tablet produce an irritating ring. Steadying her breathing, Everest pulled the tablet over and grumbled, who in the world would be calling at this hour? Her confusion only increased as she looked at the screen and saw there was no caller ID. The screen wasn't displaying even a scrap of information. The serial number display was discontinued. There was no photo, and quickly Everest's unease went on the rise. Although her instincts were screaming at her of the red flag, she was eager to cease the tail ring noise. Picking up the tablet, she accepted the call. She was instantly met with a black screen, but the call was active. She hesitated for a moment before speaking. "Who is this?" she asked warily. "Your number is decommissioned. Why are you calling me?" A familiar voice came over the tablet, piercing the black screen. "Everest, it's me." Drawing back slightly, the husky narrowed her eyes before it clicked in mind. "Chase?" she asked, recognizing the voice of the Paw Patrol leader, the German shepherd who led the team in the owner's place. "I can't see you. The screen is just black." There was silence for a few seconds, and Chase's voice came through again. "I think my camera is broken." Sorry. "Why are you calling me on a discontinued pup pad?" Everest asked, more curious than anything, but still unsettled in the back of her mind. "Because I need your help." The shepherd's voice turned serious. "I need information, and I don't need anyone tracing this call." If the husky wasn't uneasy before, she certainly was now. The secretive, almost felonious behavior wasn't normal for Chase. He was a police officer and a cokehead. The more he spoke in his cold tone, the more Everest became wary. Her ears drew back in surprise, her words stuttering one another. "Why would someone trace our call?" Chase notably dodged the question. "Have you ever heard of the ACG?" "The who?" "The Assault and," he paused for a moment, "Control something. I don't remember, but these military dogs are showing up all over Adventure Bay and we don't know why." There was a faint growl in his voice. "They hurt Rocky and shut down one of our missions." "What?" Everest recoiled in shock, fearing for her close friend in the patrol. The mental image of Rocky in pain made her sick, her mind going into a panic as she struggled to comprehend Chase's words. "Is he okay?" "He's fine," Chase said dismissively. "But I know about the communication sites for it on your mountain outpost." He spoke with a hushed tone like he was preparing to blackmail someone. "I know that tons of teams pass through your mountain to set up their radio towers." Everest flared in alarm, knowing the confidentiality of Jake operations. "How could you possibly know about that? That's classified information." She fearfully glanced to the side, even though she knew full well there was nothing there. A sheepish laugh came from the tablet. "I may have bypassed a few of Ryder's locked files." "What?" came to the husky's joyful belief, rearing back with wide eyes. The idea of a dog going against her beloved owner is the highest form of taboo, a disgrace among household animals. "Chase, you went behind his back?" Sharp retaliation heralded. "Hey, I'm the leader of this team. It is my job to be in the know." Everest flinched sharply at his tone, suddenly feeling fearful of Chase's attitude. She had never realized how terrifying a German shepherd could sound. "You should not have done that," said the husky, with a whispering tone until her tail smoothed down her spiked coat. "If Ryder finds out..." Sorry about that. I'm going to take a quick drink. Excuse me. "He won't. Now are you going to help me or not?" Swallowing her fears, Everest was swiftly defeated by her inner desire to be helpful. "Fine. What do you want?" "Surely the ACG secured a tower up there," Chase said with an interrogative voice. If his camera was working, she'd probably see him circling in his kennel. "If they're not from the cities, they must have come long distance. A comm site, a radio tower, satellite. Was anything passed through there belonging to them?" "Chase, I can't dip my paw in the classified files," she swiftly fired back, taking every chance she could to protect Jake's integrity. "Unlike you, I keep in line." "Damn it, Everest!" Chase snapped through the call, a vicious snarl leaking his muzzle. "Those dogs hurt Rocky. He's probably traumatized as law enforcement. I need to know what I can to stop more pups from getting hurt." "Fine," Everest forced herself to bark, trying to hide the visible fear in her face. "Just calm down. She's..." Tossing the tablet aside, she wiped her eyes and hurried off with hasty breaths. Why was her friend acting like this? His voice had never sounded so cruel before, nearly bringing her to tears as he yelled at her. She nervously crossed the room, walking to one of the several computers sitting up against the corner. Lip quivering, she quickly logged in with Jake's passcode and loaded up the files to the computer. "Asshole," she said silently. talking to me like that. Her nerves were screaming with every folder she entered, anxiety rising in every official file her eyes glanced over. If Jake were to walk in at this moment, Chance would probably instantly hang up and leave her to owner's mercy. How would she even begin to explain this? She wasn't supposed to be doing this. She repeatedly told herself over and over in mind, but she wanted to make Chase happy. The desperation to be like overwriting any common sense to the mind. Sure enough, her eyes glanced over a file with a notable name. ACG, the exact abbreviation Chase had mentioned. This was it. Everest took a sharp breath as she printed out the file. A printer nearby buzzed to life, screeching through the silence as its age-old workings groaned and croaked. After a few seconds that seemed like ages, a paper wheezed out of the machine, warm and freshly created. Still unsure of herself, Everest stood up on her hind legs and gingerly grabbed the paper in her mouth. Making haste back to the call, she instantly braced herself for the verbal lashing. Okay, here. She waved the paper for the camera. What's that? Came Chase's questions, riddled with impatience. In agreement of construction, she explained, dropping it on the floor. Everyone who builds on our site has to pay and sign one. She hated how much information she was spilling, knowing all the agreements she was violating by doing so. Chase didn't respond to her statement, likely unsatisfied with her answer. Desiring more, swallowing her anxiety, Everest nervously read off the paper's heading. The Assault and Containment Guild, she said, a twinge of fear passing up her spine. They passed through a few days ago and set up a radio tower for the communication lines. Paid a couple $100,000 with an agreement that was signed by a dog named Bella. She squinted at the name. Bella? The shepherd asked. Or Bella? The shepherd asked. Everest remembered the dog once. She read the name. A bright Labrador retriever had arrived in dark clothing, a trail of larger dogs behind her. Everest had made attempts to make small talk, eager to make peace with the fascinating animals, but they had all ignored her. They paid Jake, set up the radio tower, and drove away into the snowy night without another word. I don't know if she's an officer, a supervisor, or a regular dog, but she left a contact number. What is it? Chase almost instantly perked up in his mood. The husky was hesitant, knowing full well she was giving away classified information. On greater scales, what she was doing could be considered espionage, a crime punishable by death. Chase, I don't know. Everest, tell me. Against all instinct, Everest just wanted this insufferable call to end. All right, get a pen and paper and I'll read it off. She wasn't proud of herself for what she did that night, but it made Chase happy. And he ended the call soon after he got the number. He hung up the chat and shut off the tablet, leaving Everest alone in the darkness of the room. Feeling sick to her stomach, she nervously kneaded her paws on the wood floor as she pondered over her crime. Her mind couldn't place heads or tails of what to do now. Frantically, she went over every option she had and wrote off each one as abysmal. The building settled around her, singing a typhoon of uneasy creaks and wooden groans, shaking her head. Everest absently walked to the window to stare at her own reflection, trying to idle her mind. Standing before the glass with shaken breath, she wiped off Valera Frost and stared outside. At first she saw only herself, a black canvas now dipped in tar, as she hung her head sadly as she tried to think of any way to rectify her sin. Then her vision narrowed, suddenly focusing on a small shape standing outside. Her brain had merely written it off as a trick in the light until she focused her gaze and realized it was anything but. She had to squint through the window to place it, but quickly she went on alarm. There was a dog standing outside. She couldn't spot a single detail. The shadow was too far away to be barely visible beside the large floodlights that illuminated the surrounding area. Only the dog's shape was visible. The featureless build hidden in the shroud of the blizzard, staring through the freezing winds of the ski lounge. Everest's first instinct was to raise the alarms, declaring the dog trapped outside in the freezing snow. Her fear only increased as the dog was completely motionless, as she stared out in horror, thinking it was frozen. Jake! The husky barked over her shoulder. There's someone! She stopped, knowing he was probably asleep. Praying the dog could hold out while she went to wake him, she turned back to the window. Only then did she stop in confusion, her face narrowing in bewilderment. The dog was gone. And that concludes chapter 1. I hope you liked that. Sorry about the clearing of my throat and all that jazz. First time doing one of these types of videos. I will do the entire story. That was chapter 1. Look out for chapter 2 real soon, and I'll leave the link in the description below. So please, if you're good, like, comment, and subscribe. Ring that bell so you know more Sinful Black content drops. Reactions coming soon, and yeah, we'll see you real soon. Bye-bye for now.